guys, thanks for tuning into our intro lecture for mindfulness course for youth. I'm Violet and this is Nazar.
Hi, everyone.
And we are part of the Art of Life team that organizes and curates all of the mindfulness programs at the Art of Life Community Health Center. So our center is based in Toronto and it's a non-for-profit organization. We run programs to promote self-healing on all levels with emphasis on child and family health. So healthy relationships, your emotional, psychological, physical health, all of it. So these are programs basically to help you take back control over your health and your well-being. And I'm talking about mindfulness, meditative art, music, meditative movement. We've also had seminars, lots of seminars on personal growth. We have the School of Healthy Living, and as well, until very recently, we've held annual youth charity concert events. So this is for youth, talented youth, to be able to share their creativities with all of us. So today our goal is to help you learn the skill of mindfulness and self-awareness. This is self-control, and ultimately it will give you self-mastery. You know why, guys? Because it works. And this is something we all really, really need right now. So I've experienced the benefits firsthand, and I'm pretty sure Nazar did as well. And through the last several years, this mindfulness program for youth really took off. We've been there, we've watched how it's been helping teens, adults, parents, kids, and improving all of their relationships. So mindfulness is a tool to give you back your power, essentially, because when we start with self-awareness, it will help you find your path in life. You will soon come to realize that these emotions, these emotional states like fear, angst, depression, they are all temporary. They come and they go. And the sooner you become self-aware, the less power they will have over you. Because believe me, you are stronger than all of that. And you can prove it to yourself by taking charge, making the first small step to take control into your own hands.
I think we can all agree with the statement that life is full of challenges. We all face all kinds of challenges in our everyday lives. These challenges can be overwhelming at times. They can cause us to feel a lot of stress, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, discouraged, unaccepted, or not belonging. None of us really like feeling this way.
Yeah.
And sometimes these feelings can last for a long time, months, or even years. We start to see the world through this lens of negative feelings and emotions. However, what is really happening there? And this is a very powerful question. Is it the situation which I am experiencing makes me feel this way? Or is it my reaction driven by my thoughts and feelings about the situation that determines the kind of experience that I'm having at that moment? What will happen if I can remain peaceful, accept the situation like it is, and mindfully observe what is happening in that present moment? There's a saying that says, change yourself, and then you'll see how the world starts to change around you. So what is the practice of mindfulness? Mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment without judgment. It's being aware of our thoughts and feelings, sensations, and surrounding environment. For the sake of simplicity, we can define it as noticing what is happening right now. It's being present, focused, and not distracted. It's a particular state of awareness. Athletes like to refer to this as being in the zone. Why do we want to pay attention to these things? Did you ever have the experience of your emotions making you feel like you're completely out of control? Or experience of saying or doing something you wish you could take back? Whenever we get into conflicts or arguments, we often hear a phrase, "I'm sorry, I got carried away," or "I lost control, my emotions just took over me." But by practicing mindfulness, we're learning how to respond instead of reacting. we're developing an ability to be in control of our responses. So we're no longer simply reacting to situations. Life is no longer just what happens to us. Mindfulness allows us for a pause during which thoughtful responses can replace impulsive reactions. Scientists have been studying mindfulness for over 30 years. A recent university study revealed students who have completed a mindfulness course show reduced rates of anxiety, decreased symptoms of depression, increased ability to cope with anger and stress, better communication, improved relationships quality, and also increased desire and willingness to attend school. Ultimately, we all want to be happy and enjoy life. Back when I was a college student, a friend of mine said to me something that I remember to this day. And his words to me were something like this: you have a choice, and you can choose whether you want to be happy or not. It's up to you, he said. You see, I always thought that my happiness depended on something that I have or I did not have. Only many years later, I realized that happiness is our natural state of being. As Bruce Lipton, a renowned scientist, stated, if you want to be happy, you need to practice being happy. Mindfulness is a practice of being happy.
Makes sense. Yeah. And mindfulness is actually a tool to get you going in that direction. Soon enough, you will find out how powerful you really are over these emotions and your reactions, and really how valuable your life is, your experiences of life, and how much you can really, really do. Right now, you will have an opportunity to watch a recording of our mindfulness introduction class, and afterwards, we'll do a short 5-minute sample mindfulness meditation. We are welcoming you on this journey of discovery of who you really are, your unique self, and of course, rediscovering life. So please join us. We hope to see you in our next mindfulness class.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So my name's Lou Carcassoli, and I never imagined ever when I was starting off in life, going to school in my career, that I would be here doing, of all things, teaching other people the art of meditation. I began, in fact, in engineering. I'm a professional engineer, civil engineer. And that's relevant. Everything I'm telling you has some relevance, because engineers stereotypically are people perceived to be nuts and bolts kind of people, practical, down to earth. You know, don't confuse me with a lot of, mystical, schmystical stuff. I want to know how it works. And I have that mind. I want to know how things work. So early on, when I saw images of people meditating, sitting there cross-legged on the floor with their eyes closed, that's a question that occurred to me. It's like, what are they doing? And why are they doing it? I mean, if you want to relax, there's a perfectly good couch or a bed. Why don't you lie down, go to sleep? So when I first encountered meditation, quite by accident, I was really intrigued because the teacher, who I'll tell you a little bit more about him a little later, presented the practice of mindfulness in a very down-to-earth, nuts and bolts, using mathematics, etc. That really spoke to me. Anyway, from engineering, I went into business. I have an MBA, Master's of Business Administration. And that's relevant because in that course was the first time that I encountered courses that had to do with human behavior, psychology, things like organizational behavior, management theory, and so on. And something really freaky happened one day. I'm reading a textbook, a business textbook, and the author describes a typical business problematic situation. Now, I had been in business. I've had my own small businesses. And I remember reading that saying, oh, wait, this sounds really familiar. I have been in that situation myself. I've had to deal with that problem. The author then went on to describe a typical or a personality type. The author then went on to describe what that character would have thought, said, and did in the situation that he described earlier. I freaked out. I freaked out because he described exactly what I thought, said, and did when I was in that situation, which really raised the question in my mind, wait a minute. I thought we had this thing called free will. Am I a robot that somebody who doesn't even know me could predict exactly what I thought, said, and did? There's a book on the shelf behind me. I have lots of books about meditation, about mindfulness, but there's one book. The title is The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. It's a heavy-duty book. It's about Tibetan Buddhist meditation practice. Now, I want to say it on the outset that meditation has nothing to do with religion, with dogma, with anything. But in that book, there is a remarkable statement that the author makes. And the statement is, learning to meditate is the greatest gift that anyone could give themselves in this lifetime. And I believe that to be absolutely true. And what I hope to convey in our short session today is the truth of that statement. Anyway, I became fascinated by how humans behave and how we might affect that behavior. And I happened to work for the Ontario government for my boss, who was the CEO, who strongly believed in continuous learning and people continually developing themselves. And I dove into that field. It's the field of organization development. And we had all kinds of training going on. We had external consultants. Everybody was learning their own psychological style and profile and ways of behaving to be more efficient and effective with others. And I jumped in there like a dirty shirt, as they say. And along the way, I was told, well, if you really want to get good at this, there's this program at the Ontario Institute of Studies in Education, OISE. And it's a very unique, very narrow program called Developing Human Resources. And I applied for a master's in education, and I was accepted into that program. And it was like coming home. Now we were learning ways how we could help people change and grow and develop and interact, etc. It was wonderful. And you probably know this to be true. Most people, I would say 95%, 99 maybe, who make the New Year's resolutions, if only I could follow the advice of Dr. Phil or whoever it is, Tony Robbins, and so on. If only I could do that, my life would be better. And yes, the answer is yes, it would be. But not too many people are able to sustain it. Now, in the meanwhile, I had encountered Shinzen Young, who started off life as Steve Young, young Jewish boy from Los Angeles, takes an interest in Eastern philosophies and practices, and goes to Japan, lives there for 3 years, becomes a Buddhist monk, comes back to North America to teach mindfulness. And when I encountered him and I heard what mindfulness was and what it could do, I thought, let me give it a try. What have I got to lose? And I saw how mindfulness made permanent changes in me. In 1995, I started getting feelings, a vocational calling, if you will, that I should share with others what I knew about mindfulness and to help them. Now, I'd been practicing mindfulness for 9 years at this point. I spoke with Shinzen to ask him if I was ready. I didn't want to do any harm to anyone. And I got his blessings. I trained with John Kabat-Zinn. That's a big name in meditation. He's the one who developed the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program. So in 1999, I started teaching in 1996, by the way. In 1999, I did a week-long training program with John Kabat-Zinn, just so I could tell people like you that I trained with John Kabat-Zinn. And that's a credential that was important, particularly in the healthcare sector, because they knew that name. If I showed up and said I trained with Shinzen Yang, who's Shinzen Yang, and who are you? So I did it to get the piece of paper that said, I did it. So I've been teaching since 1996. The results have always been excellent. However, in the beginning, because people who hired me, organizations, I ran programs at Toronto General Hospital for staff, for example. They want to know, are they getting their money's worth? And so they would hand out at the end of the course, the usual course evaluations. Did you enjoy the program? Do you feel you learned something? Was the facilitator knowledgeable, prepared, blah, blah, blah? Did you like the experience? And they were always excellent. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being excellent, they always came in at around 4.5 to 5, somewhere in that range, which is great. I mean, I'm glad people enjoyed it, had a good time, found it interesting. But the question in my mind was, have I made a difference in your life? If I haven't made a difference, if you're still behaving in the same old patterns as before, then we just had a pleasant time together. It was entertaining and we got to know one another and we're friends maybe, etc. But so what? That's not what I'm here for. I want to make a difference in your life. So I started using a tool that I got from John's training program, John Kabat-Zinn. It's a stress assessment tool. And it gives you a more objective measure of the amount of stress or suffering in your life. And I can tell you that over the years, with the thousands of people that I've had the pleasure and the privilege of teaching, that the reduction in stress as measured by that tool, keeping in mind that I have no idea of whether people were diligent and committed and practiced or not. I know the spectrum is wide. There were some that practiced and made the commitment to practice 30 minutes a day. That's the deal, by the way, 30 minutes a day, average. And many others who would come in week after week and say, oh, well, I didn't do very much this week. Maybe I sat down and meditated once, or something else is going on in my life, never got around to it. So keep in mind that there's that range of how much people actually did. And yet the reduction in stress overall was about a 55% drop. One of the places that I've been teaching mindfulness over the years, I'm not doing it right now because of COVID, is in a hospital setting. There's a psychiatrist who has to sit in with the groups with every session. And I always ask, show me any other intervention, anything, whether it's medication, psychotherapy, show me anything that can deliver this kind of result. No one ever has. So that to me is feedback that says, hey, this really works. And it's not rocket science. I'll tell you what it is and what it isn't in just a moment. But first, I want to read something by a young lady who just, in fact, the completion of the program is today. So she sent this in. She sent me her stress assessment questionnaire for me to tabulate. And she says, thank you so much for facilitating the class and the valuable knowledge and teachings you give each time. I am shocked at how much of a big difference in my before and after scores are as I look at them. Shocked in a good way. To be honest, I was a bit skeptical about meditation at the very start of the course and even questioned if I wanted to continue. I'm glad I gave it a chance. I feel really great after putting it to practice, meditating each time. It has been a great positive factor in my life. It really does help people relax and improves a lot of problematic aspects one may face. It has also helped me deal and cope with my mental health. Meditation will be a practice I will continue to incorporate in my life once the program is over. And she wants to try and interest a couple of her relatives to take up meditation as a result of her experience. I'll tell you about one other person. This was a young lady. I got a phone call one day. She was a student at the University of Guelph. And she said, I know that you are offering this program. I know that at this agency, this was an agency for people struggling with eating disorders. She said, and I know I could take the program for free there, but I can't. I can't be in a group with other people. I just can't handle being with other people. And I need help. Are you willing? Can you do anything for me? And I said, well, if you're willing to come to my place Saturday mornings, I'm willing to spend some time with you. Now, we did 10 sessions with her. She would drive in from Guelph to Toronto Saturday mornings to spend roughly an hour and a half with me. And I presume because she did that, she was more committed. I assume that because of the difficulties in her life, which she sent me a letter later on, and there were suicidal tendencies, and she had dropped out of school, couldn't function. Sounded very similar to what I had been through. That maybe that's what motivated her to reach out. And her score on that questionnaire when she first came, oh, and by the way, I have to tell you, when I opened the door to greet her, she always wore a toque down to her eyes, had difficulty making eye contact. At best would glance up and then look down at the floor. Her chest was withdrawn, shoulders hunched, just this cloud of negative energy, no confidence, never smiled. That's fine. And we began. At the 8th session, I said, well, most of the research is based on 8 weeks. It's our 8th session. Would you mind completing the questionnaire? And we'll see. There's been a difference. And she did that. And as she's handing it back to me, she starts to apologize. I said, what are you apologizing for? Well, maybe I should have tried harder. I really don't think that I accomplished all that much, not what you were expecting, blah, 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 blah. I didn't say anything because I knew. First of all, I could see it in her posture. I could see it in her face. I could see her that she made eye contact. I could see that she smiled a lot more. So I didn't say anything. I said, well, we'll see. So I quickly tabulated her questionnaire, and I had her original nearby, and I handed both back to her. Her score, by the way, on the first questionnaire was 256, pretty high. It's getting up there. The maximum possible score for somebody whose life is completely out of control is 360. Hers was up there. She looked at the results, her jaw dropped, and she said exactly, I quote, "Oh my God, I forgot how it used to be," it being how her life used to be. Her score on the second questionnaire was 25, a 90% drop. She stayed in touch over the years, went on to do amazing things, graduated from university and all of that. And so that's the power. Now I tell that story not to impress anybody with what I did. I didn't do anything. It's the practice of mindfulness that did it. And it was her efforts that did it. But the other reason I'm telling you this story is, you see, she did not notice it. People who experience that kind of a shift, like the other young lady here, whose email I read to you, they did not notice it. And anybody who takes this practice out, you're not going to notice it. Probably the people who will notice it before you do are the people that are close to you. The people that will look and say, wait a minute, you know, something's going on. You've changed. You don't seem to get as upset as you used to. What's happening? And that's the reason for the questionnaire, by the way, is to give you in black and white some more objective measure that something has changed. And hopefully when you see that, you will be encouraged to continue to practice and to make this a part of your daily life. And after a while, that happens automatically, by the way, that your default, when you have nothing to do or you're in a stressful situation, your default behavior is to slide into sort of a more meditative behavior because it works. And you've developed a new habit of relating to conflict, relating to difficulties. Okay, so enough of that. So what is it? First of all, there are a lot of practices that fall under this big umbrella term called meditation. They're not the same. There are practices that really what people mean is quiet thinking, quiet reflection. You know, I'm going to go in a corner, leave me alone. I'm going to meditate on this problem. Well, what is it that you're really going to do? If you're going to sit there and just think quietly and, you know, turn the problem over and over in your mind, that's not meditation. Then there are practices like relaxation techniques. You'll find them on YouTube. They're all over the place. Guided imagery, visualization. You take a vacation in your mind. You know, imagine yourself in a cool, leafy forest and there's a, you know, those kinds of things. And they can be very powerful. They can be very powerful if used properly. Now, in mindfulness, in the program I do, towards the end, we will use that kind of meditation, but for a specific purpose, so that we could apply the skills of mindfulness to that experience. That's a whole different ballgame now. So that's category 2, guided imagery, visualization, relaxation techniques, which they probably don't even fit in category 2. Category 3 are the more serious practices now. In all religious traditions, you will find some kind of meditation practice. In transcendental meditation, it is a sound, a word, a phrase that you repeat over and over and over again. And the common theme in these practices, as far as I can see, is to develop high states of concentration, to be able to focus on something, whether it's a prayer, sound, an object. And when you can focus with such intensity, it's as if everything else disappears. You're not aware of the world, you're not aware of pain in your body, you're not aware of anything. There's just the object of meditation, the thing you're focusing on. Now, let's move to category 4 meditation. Category 4 meditation, the core of which is mindfulness. Mindfulness was discovered by the fellow that we refer to as the Buddha. He was a scientist, as far as I'm concerned, because he set out to find the answer to, is there a way to overcome, to transcend human suffering, stress? And he didn't find the answer because he searched around and tried all the different practices that were around at the time. Fasting, exposure, deprivation, etc. And they didn't work. Maybe they provided short-term benefit, but not long-term. Over the years, as India was invaded by different armies and so on, people fled for safety. And so mindfulness migrated to China and Japan, blended with the samurai warrior culture, and was transformed into Zen, Buddhist meditation. The core is mindfulness. It migrated north up into Nepal, Tibet, blended with the Hindu culture. It was transformed into what we've referred to as, Tibetan Buddhist practice, and so on with other countries and cultures. The core, if you look, and those practices, Tibetan practice and Zen practice, practiced in Japan and China, they look totally different from one another, totally. But if you look closely at it as to what are they really doing, they're just different roads to the same end. You will arrive at it's mindfulness. Now, what is mindfulness? It's very simple. You can summarize it in just a few words. One teacher, one author, he uses one word: relaxation. Just relax. Something bothers you? Relax. You're disappointed about something? Don't worry about it. Relax. Just relax. Relax. But the ability to relax, actually the skill, the capacity, is not easy. One thinks that relaxation should be a piece of cake, who doesn't want to relax? It is not easy. Most people walk around with all kinds of, chronic tensions and stresses in their body, and they don't even realize that they're there. So it's hard work to develop the ability to relax. Now, I would expand that a little bit more. I would say that there are two skills involved. The first is awareness, which is the concentration power, the focus, etc., in the category 3 meditations. The ability to put your attention on something and to keep it there. Because one of the first discoveries that people make when they take up practice like mindfulness is how little control they really have over their own mind. Very little control. And their mind is thinking about this and daydreaming about that. And most of the time, it's not even here. It's in the past or the future. You're kind of dreaming. You're in a dream state. And every once in a while, you kind of wake up and you are able to say to yourself when you wake up, oh, I've been thinking about this problem. But you see, while you were thinking about that problem, you had no idea that you were thinking about that problem. So awareness is about being more aware of what's happening in your life, including where your mind is at. And every one of those thoughts triggers some reaction in the body. If it's a scary thought, it will trigger fear. And fear doesn't feel pleasant in the body. And now you react to the fear. Because when there are unpleasant sensations going on, you harden up, you tighten up. You don't want to feel them. You're trying to push them away. And that is stress. Stress is what you do to yourself, you fighting yourself. Fear is there and it wants to move and you're afraid of it. So you say, wait a minute, I don't want you to move. And so you lock it in. And you have the knot in the stomach, the tension in the back of the neck, the headache, the queasiness, and all that stuff. So the first thing is to be aware, to notice where this is taking place. The second is to stop fighting yourself. That's the relaxation part. And it's a skill. Both of these are skills. And they have to go hand in hand. Because there's, my own teacher gave me the analogy of an onion. Think about an onion. An onion has many layers. And most people spend their entire life, their waking life, on the surface of the onion. Not even aware that there's any depth to it. All they see is what's on the surface. And when you start to pay attention and you start to relax, you start to penetrate the layers of the onion. And you're learning about yourself. You're learning where inside you carry these blockages, these triggers. And it's a process of releasing that. And when you've released something that you're carrying inside, it's gone. It's gone. You know, there's a CBC video that they did in 2004, I believe. There was an Olympic swimmer who failed to make the Olympic team. She made a mistake. She was a Canadian champion. And her hand hit the lane rope in the trials in Montreal. And she lost her place on the team. And that precipitated years of depression, poor performance, because I guess her whole life she had been building to this moment to go to the Olympics, and suddenly the dream is shattered. Luckily for her, the sports psychologist had heard about meditation, and he devised a plan. And the plan was for her to relax, watch the video of the failed trial, the trigger, the memory, end of the video to relax some more, open the eyes, watch the video again, and go back and forth. I would have done it differently than that, but essentially a good strategy. It worked. Her joy of swimming returned. She started winning weight race after race. She made the Olympic team at the next Olympics. She came in 17th in the world, by the way, in her stroke, the backstroke. Now, some people may get the wrong idea based on everything I've said so far. And the idea is that, meditation is really useful and only for somebody who has problems, whether it's, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, depression, pain, and so on. And that is wrong. It's the wrong question. The question really should be, are you operating at peak performance, at your highest potential? Because if you look around, if you start doing some digging, you will see that there are top sports athletes, like Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, the former coach of the LA Lakers and the Chicago Bulls, where Michael Jackson played, Shaquille O'Neal, the late Kobe Bryant, and so on. He taught them meditation. You get people in business performing at very high levels. We're talking like Steve Jobs was a meditator, and you'll find many other CEOs and people like that. And they do it because it helps them to perform at peak levels. So whatever you're doing, meditation, mindfulness will help you. I want to share just one result of a survey that was done with you. So I'm going to share my screen. This was a survey done by a couple of colleagues who taught mindfulness in the Ottawa area. And they asked people who had taken their program up to 4 years in the past, to what extent is that program that you took, that 8-week program, still affecting your ability to perform in life today? Now, I aggregated the responses, moderate to high impact, which means the response is, well, pretty good to really good. I cope better with stress. 87% of them said pretty good to really good. I concentrate better. Fewer stress-related physical symptoms. Fewer stress-related emotional problems. Adapt better to change. Relationships have improved. Decision-making skills have improved. Communication, problem solving. All of these things have improved for the vast majority of those people who responded, from pretty good to really good. And so I wanted to make sure that I conveyed that to you. It's not just for the people who are struggling, in danger of drowning. This will help you perform at peak levels. In one program we did about a year ago, they were with young kids. There were 3 boys, age about 10, 11, who said that they tried out for this elite basketball team and they failed to make it on several attempts. And after the mindfulness, all 3 boys made that team, and they credited it with mindfulness. One of them said on the way to the tryouts, he said, "Mom, I need to meditate before we go." And he came back and said, as a result of that, the ability to be focused and relaxed is what, every Olympic athlete, high-performing sports figures, etc., needs, as well as the people functioning at the highest levels of academics or business or society in general. So that's it. Win-win-win all-around solution. So that's what it can do. It's to expunge some of these things, toxins that we carry inside. And all it is the practice to pay attention. Now, there are more efficient ways of cultivating those skills, and that's what happens in the 8-week program. We start with something that is doable, and then we start to increase the challenge factor a little bit more, a little bit more. It's like going to the gym. You go to the gym and you want to increase the strength of your bicep. Well, you get a weight and you start doing bicep curls. So maybe, let's say you start with 2 pounds and you do 10, 15, 20 repetitions. Now, if you stay at that for the rest of your life, you're never going to evolve to curling 20, 30, 50 pounds. So after a week of working with 2 pounds, your trainer would say, well, you're doing pretty good. Why don't we add another 1 or 2 pounds and see if you can do that? And of course, it's going to be a bit of a strain the first little while. But after a week or two, it's like, well, that's no big deal now. Now you add more weight. And eventually, over time, you're curling 50 pounds. It's like, wow. So it's the same with mindfulness in terms of these skills. Every week, the challenge gets slightly greater, but doable. And after 3 or 4 weeks of that, then we start applying the skills as well as hopefully continuing to cultivate them. So we start doing something called body scan meditation. Going through the body now, looking for places, all the corners inside where this is happening. The possibility of stopping that presents itself. And then down the road, towards the end, we will do a guided imagery kind of exercise, a forgiveness exercise, loving kindness exercise to intentionally, potentially trigger something inside that we're carrying. Forgiveness, for example. Think of something that still bothers you. Every time you think about it, bothers you, still makes you angry or something. That's a toxin you're carrying inside. Let's see if we can release that. So the deal is this, it's an 8-week program. And that's how the program runs. We begin with a short meditation. You get tools, by the way. You get audio files. All you have to do is download it or press play or something. And my voice comes on and guides you through the exercise. You don't have to do anything else. So the first one is only 17 minutes long and easily doable. And then we go up to 30 minutes. And then we stay at 30 minutes for a few weeks. And then towards the end, past the middle part of the program, we crank it up to 40 minutes. And we stay at 40 minutes. And it's perfectly doable. Challenging, of course. That's my job, is to challenge you. If you want to lie down on the couch and take it easy and go to sleep and have a nice vacation, go ahead. But nothing's going to change in your life. You need to be challenged, and you need to challenge yourself. And without torturing yourself. I always stress that. Challenge yourself. If it starts turning into a torture, don't torture yourself, because you don't want to associate meditation with torture. It's for sure you're going to drop the practice and never come back to it again. So we'll finish off with a brief 5-minute guided meditation, just to give you a bit of a sample. In a way, it's unfair, because it's like somebody interested in physical fitness. And so you say to them, well, how about we do 5 push-ups and as a demonstration of what physical fitness is about? Of course, it's much, much, much more than that. So that's the comparison. Okay, now, first thing is posture. Posture is important because you want to sit in a way which is going to be comfortable to promote relaxation and at the same time promote alertness. You see, to be fully alert, wide awake, and completely relaxed at the same time is a very unusual state for most people. And we have a conditioned response that when the body starts to get very relaxed, the mind goes unconscious, we fall asleep. So you don't want to create the conditions to make that easier to happen. So do not meditate lying on the couch or in your lazy boy reclining chair. And don't worry about the classic postures, sitting cross-legged on the floor, because those will be torture for most people, unless you are, a real yoga practitioner. So just find a comfortable chair, one that will promote a relatively straight back. We're going to meditate with our eyes closed. Some practices, like in Zen meditation, they teach you to meditate with your eyes partially open. And there are pros and cons to that, which we can talk about somewhere down the road. But in mindfulness, it's usually closing the eyes. Now, what we're doing is we are simplifying the environment. The environment experience comes to us through our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, and physical touch, our nervous system. It's the only way we experience anything. And if we're moving around or the environment is too distracting, situation is too chaotic. So you close the eyes to remove the visual distractions. You sit in a quiet space so there isn't a lot of noise. You're not doing much eating. Hopefully there aren't strong smells around to distract you. And you sit relatively still so you're not generating a lot of touch. And in this way, we have a greater possibility of noticing what's happening inside our mind and in particular inside our body. I'm going to ring this meditation bell. I'm going to ring it 3 times. It's tradition. Everybody seems to ring it 3 times, and I just fell in with tradition. Every once in a while, I'm tempted to ring a 4th time to see, is anybody paying attention? So I'll ring it 3 times. When the bell is ringing, that is your object of meditation. In other words, pay attention to just hearing the sound of the bell. Don't think about it. Don't judge it. Don't start wondering about where you can buy such a thing and how much they, just listen, 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 listen. Try and stay with the sound as long as you can. And you are practicing that skill of concentration power. All right, now, close the eyes and listen to the sound of the bell. So the place to start is to now, with your eyes closed, double check your posture. Because oftentimes we'll sit down and maybe some part of our clothing is a little bit too tight, a little too constrictive. Maybe we have a pressure point or not equally balanced. So check your posture, make any adjustments that you need to get more comfortable. And then once you found this posture, try and maintain it relatively still without torturing yourself. And allow your body to settle, to sink into this posture. Feel that force called gravity, which is holding you to the earth, pulling you down. And give into it. Almost feel like your insides are drifting down towards the floor. You're going to let your shoulders settle. You're going to let your face become expressionless, allowing the jaw to fall, to find its own natural resting place. And you could feel your cheeks flowing down your face. Everything settling. And you see you are practicing the skill or the art of letting go, of relaxation. And now in this calmer, more relaxed state, you become aware of something happening continuously, and that is your body breathing. The body, the torso, feels like a big balloon, and it inflates a little bit with each in-breath. The chest rises, the stomach rises, and it deflates with each out-breath. And that becomes your object of meditation, to just feel the lifting and the falling away. The lifting and the falling away, breath after breath. One last thing I'd like to point out concerning the breath. Very important. Notice that when you breathe in, your body goes into a little bit of tension. Because in order to breathe in, the muscle called the diaphragm contracts, goes into tension. And it physically pulls on the lungs to expand them. And so we literally suck the air into our lungs. But when we breathe out, there's no work to be done. We don't push the air out. We simply relax. The diaphragm relaxes. The lungs relax. And the air naturally escapes. Every out-breath is an act of relaxation, an act of letting go. A reminder of what letting go feels like. And you can use that as a powerful tool to go deeper and deeper into relaxation. So let's do that for the last minute now. And if you want to add something else, you can say to yourself silently in your own head with each out-breath the word deeper. That's the bell to end our meditation. So I hope you found this interesting, educational, inspirational, motivational, and hopefully we'll see you and get to know one another in the not too distant future. Ciao.